Josh Groban, welcome to the show.
Lovely to see you again, Tom. Thanks for having me.
It's a joy to have you. So let's go back about 500 years ago, back to
Oh no.
February.
Uh-huh.
So you were doing this residency at Radio City Music Hall, big cabaret, kind of old style variety show, all kinds of special guests. Before we get to the acts, how were you feeling back then? It's a bit of a cruel question, but how were you feeling?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does feel fun. I mean, we call it BC, before COVID. It was a long, long time ago in our history books, and I was feeling. I mean, I was feeling, great, tired, but great. I mean, I was so excited to have that show. I mean, Radio City Music Hall is a venue that has been a real good luck venue for me. I've It was the first concert I ever played in New York was at Radio City Music Hall, and I had been, early on in my career, I think really intimidated by playing New York because, I knew how kind of notoriously tough it was to, make it there. I think there's a song or two about that. And when you feel that love for the first time and in the venue that gives you that love for the first time, it sticks with you. So all these years later, they bravely said, "Hey, take the venue, do whatever you want with it." And we had kind of decided to make an evening that was musical and improvisational and had guests and, it was kind of all little points of light of all the things that I'd done in my career kind of into one evening. And we had like five ready to go, and we were planning on moving on beyond those as well. And yeah, it was a residency of one night. But I think that's just, and you can get down on the dumps about it and you can say, "Oh man, we worked so hard to get ready for that one night. And it was such an extraordinary night and the buzz was so great." And, and of course you had to move it, but that's all of us. I mean, when I talk about this, I'll complain and say, "Oh gosh, it was just so tough. We had to move on from that." But I had it easy. I mean, because so many of my friends were about to embark on projects that were going to go on for way longer and had been planned for way longer than even that for me. All of my freelance theater friends who don't know what they're going to do, who are about to open theater. People who, for those of us in music, touring is such a huge part of our, joy and livelihood. And I was at the tail end of a tour. I've got a lot of friends that were at the very, very beginning of a tour. This has just it's been devastating for what we love about live performance all around, whether it's my thing or their thing. It's been hard, but we've been trying to do what we can virtually and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
uh,
When
and
when
it must
when
move
did
on.
you get the call?
Well, we were at that point. We had done one night at Radio City, and we were going to do kind of one a month.
Yeah.
So I had then gone off to do kind of three or four concerts in Florida that just kind of popped up, and we were there. And of course, now we know that Florida took a very, very long time to shut down, and so we're glad we made the decision when we did, because I think we were kind of like a lot of people at that time, because we were kind of looking over our shoulder to say,
Yeah.
what's Live Nation telling people to do? What's Billie Eilish going to do tonight? We were kind of saying, well, is this the thing? Because if you cancel it yourself, it's a very different thing for the insurance policy than it is if like the city decides or the promotion, production company decides, what promotion company decides. So, and it was also at that point where we didn't quite know what this thing was. We didn't really know if it was airborne or if it was the kind of thing
Yeah.
where people could get it.
Very
Concerts were
mysterious at the
still
time. I
happening.
remember
It,
that.
it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was right, tail end of February. So we did make the decision because we just said to ourselves, look, it's a few concerts and rather err on the side of cautious than not. And now, of course, we look back and of course we're very, very glad we did.
So you start making this record, Harmony, before the pandemic hit, but you said after the pandemic hit, the album started to take a new shape. How do you mean?
Well, I had previously made an album called Bridges that was very personal. I'd written almost every song on the album, and so I'm not the fastest writer. I kind of wait for the jolts to hit me, and it can take me sometimes a couple of years to really decide what I want to say and what I want to write. So I feel very lucky in my career that I've been able to put on different hats where that's concerned, and my original hat is always just as a vocalist, as an interpreter, and loving to sing great songs.
Mm.
So I've accumulated a bucket list of songs that I've wanted to sing for a really long time, and fans have asked me to sing for a really long time. And so at the start of all this, I knew that's what I wanted this like album 9 or 10 or whatever it is. I wanted this to be that album. We had great arrangers lined up. And so we recorded 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5 before we shut down. And after Florida, we were going to come back into the studio and just kind of continue on with our list that we had somewhat predetermined. And when all that sound turns to silence and you're left with just kind of the idea that, well, you know, you may not have a microphone for a very, very long time, and the project is up in the air. Who knows where your head's going to be at the end of it? You know, the momentum might be gone. So we might have to kind of start from scratch in a couple of places. And so, you know, it changes, even if you're not writing, it changes the way you listen to music. It changes the way you curate and find songs. And
how does it change it?
Well, because even if they're not your own originals, you still want to choose music that in some way, shape, or form. I think a lot of people sometimes assume that, you know, if a singer like myself is doing an album of songs that are just classics, well, you know, he's just finding songs that sound beautiful and just he's putting arrangements to them and he's putting them out.
People there's nothing to it. That's nice. Yeah, sure. Let's pick a couple of songs out. Good for him.
Nice voice, lovely songs. Thanks for the album. And
that's a good name for your your box set, by the way.
I'm going to go Fiona Apple and just make these long titles. There'll be ... at the end. Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes when you're in the middle of an album process, you know, you don't want to overthink it more than I love this song, let's try it. But as a whole, you can't help, and this is the most incredible thing that I've found just from an interpreting standpoint, even subconsciously, the world around you and the inner world and inner turmoil, joys and celebrations and sorrows, it does guide you in some invisible way to songs that mean something to you, to get you out or be a part of the soundtrack to those moments in your life. And so songs that I had already found to be quite powerful and quite inspirational, I found totally new relevance today. An example of that is something like The Impossible Dream, where I, you know, always knew that song as, you know, like, you know, Jim Nabors, Goulet, you know, kind of the big inspirational, you know, thing. And I had no idea how powerful the message was of, you know, being boxed in, having to really only go to your own imagination and determination to tell a story of the world you want to see rather than the world you're surrounded by. Right. And that's the whole story of Don Quixote. Yeah.
Can I play you a song off the record? And just given that this is a Canadian show, it should be no surprise what we're going to play. Just take a listen.
Let's play her, please. Yes.
Love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all.
Josh Groban and Sara Bareilles singing Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now on his new album, Harmony. Josh Groban is my guest. So let's talk about that song in the context of what we were just talking about. You know, songs that you've heard a million times before, songs that you have you've been meaning to pick out for a while. They have a different kind of relevance. They have a different kind of meaning during this pandemic. I have to say, I'm getting a little emotional listening to it. I'm not entirely sure why. Why Both Sides Now? What did you hear differently in Both Sides Now?
So this was a song that was not on my list for this album, not because I hadn't dreamed of singing it or that I didn't love it very, very much, but I think because I was kind of scared of it a little bit. And I know Sarah feels the exact same way, have such a reverence for Joni and her work and the message of these songs. My favorite version of this song is when she re-sang it later in her life with this beautiful Vince Mendoza arrangement.
Yeah, kind of stretched it out. Hey, she wasn't singing it directly on the beat. Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
It was infused with a knowing and a wisdom that, you know, this is a song all about, it's a song about perspective. It's a song about how, as life hits you in the unexpected ways, how you see things differently and how no matter how much perspective you get and how many situations in your life teach you new lessons, you know, the miracle and the tragedy of life sometimes is that we, at the end of it all, we still don't know all that much. And isn't that wonderful? And, And so I was afraid to sing this song because I felt even at, the ripe old age of 39, I maybe didn't have enough stuff yet. And so at the end of the album, it was very, very last minute doing this song. I was checking with Sara. We're also just really good friends. We've done so many things together. She had COVID this year. And so she's been through it.
She's doing okay?
Yep. Doing okay. She had, a kind of medium case of it where she definitely had a bunch of symptoms, but was able to get through it okay. But we both have friends that have suffered far greater with it. And so, we were talking about life and catching up. And then I brought up this song and I thought, this has been a song that has meant a lot to me right now. And I don't know if it's ever been done as a duet, but if it has, I think it would work really well for us. What do you think? And she said, sure. And so I went to my producer, Bernie Herms, and said, how fast do you think we could craft something for me and Sara? And it happened very, very fast. And it's one of my favorites on the album as well.
If you're just tuning in, my guest is Josh Groban. So we've been talking about the record Harmony you made in isolation. I want to talk about something else you've been doing during the pandemic. Take a listen.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
That is a clip from last April of my guest, Josh Groban, singing the classic What a Wonderful World all by himself in the shower. I want to point out fully clothed, by the way.
Fully clothed. Fully clothed. I feel like, Tom, that should be like, remember on CDs when if you on the last track, you waited 30 minutes, you could get like a bonus track.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have put a couple shower songs at the end of Harmony if you just hang on.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's funny how you describe it as someone at the end of their rope because there is
well, when you play it without context and you're just listening to me singing, Wonderful World with that shower acoustic. I mean, if I were just a listener, I'd be thinking, oh, he's lost it. Yeah.
But it is lovely. I think it was part of that early on in the pandemic when we didn't. Yes. I mean, frankly, I think we could use a little bit more of that right now. But at the beginning of the pandemic, we were having all these different ways to connect with one another and make music. And this is how you ended up doing it. It was something else.
Yeah. Well, I was doing these kind of, Billboard had asked me to do something and I was doing some things in my bedroom and just singing, like you said, doing what we can to connect where we could. And somebody asked me to sing some big anthemic song or something. I'm thinking, I don't like the reverb in here. It was actually where I'm sitting right now. And I don't like it's just as a joke. I took my iPad into the shower and started singing. And then my manager called me and said, that actually it's good reverb. I'm like, yeah, of course, it's the best reverb anywhere. Nobody can match where you learned to sing. And so we just decided to do it, every couple of weeks, and we raised money for charity each time we did it. And it was fun, but yeah, maybe it's time for a new one.
I think it was good for you too.
It was good for me. It got me out of my shell. I mean, experimenting with music in lots of different ways was so unbelievably therapeutic for me during this. And I think doing it in a way where I took off because I have a tendency sometimes to be a bit anxious about performing and singing and a little bit of a perfectionist and wanting everything to be just right.
Yeah.
And I think there was something healthy for me about the idea of kind of taking it way, way, way back to just basics of like, none of us are in a position where we can do anything the way we want to do it. So let's just do what we can. And, for being on the treadmill since I was 17 years old, and being very spoiled, if I'm honest, just that, the very first times I was singing in this business was on the grandest stages and in the biggest studios. And, it was, and I mentioned these kind of small silver linings of this otherwise tragic year when we come out of this, of just kind of taking stock in just the simple ways we chose to connect with each other and felt the need to, when we very easily could have just hibernated, just shut down, just said, well, this is going to be the year of not having any of these things. So I'll see you on the other end.
But also for someone like yourself and like myself and a lot of people listening to this who struggled with anxiety and struggled with depression, it only sharpened those pencils. Like it only exacerbated what we were already dealing with, So I can imagine it was therapeutic like that too.
Yeah. And I'm thankfully, my kind of, I've got my 10,000 hours for depression. My understanding of it now in my life is that I could see from a 30,000 foot view that what was occurring or what was about to occur would potentially be a perfect storm of all of those things that are triggers for that, the anxiety, the uncertainty, I tell people who are suffering a lot that, like, because I understand it, just like take those baby steps to do something that makes you feel vital. It doesn't have to, it can be that you walked 5 feet outside and just got some fresh air. Like, it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. But the lens of these things tells you that you shouldn't even do that you shouldn't even take those steps, that there's nothing out there, that really there's nothing you need to do except just sit and wallow in this. And for anybody who understands what this is, it is vitally important to just do those things, because it breaks the spell. It in small ways and sometimes very, very large ways. So I knew that could potentially happen during this time. We'd be just alone. And so for me, I needed to do these things too.
How's the live stream thing going? I know you've been doing, you're doing live streams. It's funny because you are by yourself, but you are able to be with people. So there's something lovely about that,
I was skeptical. I think none of us feel like this is a replacement for the magic of that tightrope walk of the live experience. And I think when live performance, when Broadway theater, when all that comes back, there will be a celebration and a renaissance and an enjoyment of being with each other, doing that. That's going to be off the charts.
Do you think it'll feel different? Do you think it'll feel different because we went through this?
I think for a minute it will, of course. I think it will feel, I was watching, when I watch movies that were filmed, BC, I'm getting that gut reaction when I see somebody walk into a crowded bar or hug somebody, or I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, that's how we know, like, even after 8 months or whatever it's been, like, we're used to feeling like that's a no-no.
No, but I mean, I wonder if we took it for granted. Like, I wonder if we took being on stage and playing in front of people for granted, right?
There's no question that even the things we were grateful for, we didn't. You never know just how much you're grateful for these things until they're gone. I always feel like, it's important to flex gratitude, especially to be lucky enough to be in this business. I try to have tried to take stock and be thankful for that every single day. There isn't a moment that goes by where I'm not thankful for it. And yet, for all of us, I think we fully will understand on a deeper level just how vital it is to our lives. And I think it will. Sure.
I'm glad you're doing a Christmas live stream too, because I think that it's going to be hard this Christmas. Even I am sort of blocking that out. Like, I haven't quite made peace with it.
Mm-hmm. That's why we did it this year. I've never done a full length Christmas show, which is, I know, surprising to some people, but I kind of felt like I didn't want to overdo the Christmas thing, because it became so big that year. And I felt like I wanted the songs to still feel like special and take them off the shelf every year, and didn't want to just overcook it. And so, I never did like the full Christmas tour and all that stuff. So this year though, I'm in the same boat. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see my family. My brother's in New York. My parents are in their 70s. And I am probably just going to be virtual. And so one of the very beautiful things about these live streams that I wasn't expecting is that it's kind of poetic that, like, we're stuck in a box. We're singing to crickets. There's no applause, which can make us all kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And we're singing
because we need it.
Well, I need it because I need the guidance.
Yeah.
That's the thing
is this going well?
Go out there. Yeah, exactly. And even if you're a confident singer guy, if you don't get that back, it's like a laugh for a stand-up comic. You don't know really if you're just kind of swimming in your own head and thinking it's going great, because we all know what it feels like too, to feel like you're crushing it. And then you realize later you were in fact very much not crushing it.
Yeah.
And so that back and forth is important. But then you get it delayed. You see thousands of more other boxes around the world in their own isolation, sending you digital applause, that this meant so much to them, and everybody gathered and they Zoomed and they came in. And so that's been a cool thing to see. Countries that I've never even visited tuned in. We had 85 countries last live stream. So there is something quite powerful about it. It's just you see it delayed.
It's beautiful. Before we go, as you mentioned, You were 17 when you started this thing out. You're as I think you said, a ripe old age of 39 now, and you're taking stock during the pandemic. Well, then I have to ask, how are you feeling approaching 40 after a career in this industry?
I had big plans for how my year going into 40 was just going to be. I was going to try and like take the limitless pill and just kind of do it all so that I wouldn't fall into another depression.
Bungee jumping,
just bungee jumping, travel the world, make 10 albums, hit the gym every day, and so I guess that's life. That's the universe sometimes says to you, well, you're going to go into it having to deal with things in a different way. And I think that's actually probably been a unexpectedly healthier way to go into 40 is I've actually had to spend a whole lot of time getting to know myself this year. And I think the good news is, hopefully, fingers crossed, if these vaccines come out quickly, that at some point over the next year, we'll all start to feel like all the things, hopefully, that we learned this year, we're able to put into action, and we're able to, go out and do the things we love to do and hug the people we love to hug. With that much more gratitude and love. So yeah, it's a big one, but honestly, there's a whole lot out there that's a lot bigger. And I think that can also be healthy when, you get knocked upside the head and it ain't about you.
Well, you were just saying that. All I can think was, my God, last time I saw you, you were over there playing that
sitting piano. At that piano.
Yeah, and I can't
singing the aptly titled Bridge Over Troubled Water.
I know.
Last time I was with you. And, I miss all of it. I've been doing a lot of, tuning in with my, laptop to studios that I've loved visiting around the world, and it's been hard. I think we're rounding third, but we'll see.
Well, buddy, I'll tell you, if you start missing press, I know you're getting desperate out there. So that's Josh, thanks so much. Nice to talk to you.
Tom, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.